On October 9th, French Defense Minister Sébastien Leclerc announced on social media that France will provide Ukraine with a special upgraded Hwanying 2000 fighter jet in January to March 2025, and will also provide a pair of Scalab-1G cruise missiles and AISM-HAM during the period of Ukraine's gradual establishment of a new air force based on the F-16. What changes will the sudden appearance of Hwanying 2000 bring to the Russian-Ukrainian warfare? Let's talk about it today. It's a coincidence that just 2 days before France confirmed the upgrade of Hwanying 2000, which will be officially handed over to Ukraine at the beginning of next year, another batch of F-16s from the Russian army also arrived. They are the first batch of F-16 fighters from the Dutch Air Force. After the second batch is handed over, Ukraine will have 24 F-16s from the Netherlands. Considering that fighter pilots are an important combat force for the current Ukrainian army, and the period of training qualified pilots is also relatively long, therefore, whether it is to get Hwanying 2000 or F-16, the Air Force will have to pay a lot of effort to form a combat force on the basis of Western original fighter jets. So for the current Ukrainian army, how much change can Hwanying 2000 bring to the warfare? Compared with F-16, what additional features can Hwanying 2000 play? In fact, it should be noted that Hwanying 2000 is the younger brother of F-16. In 1978, he who started his first batch of mass production was 5 years younger than F-16, but his final production time ended earlier than F-16. The last batch of Hwanying 2000 stealth fighters was officially discontinued in 2007, a total of 601. Hwanying 2000 fighter jets were produced in the whole series. There are about 400 Hwanying 2000 fighter jets still in service around the world. So we can say from the operating state that Hwanying 2000 is not as light as F-16. In terms of mass production scale, it cannot be compared with F-16s with more than 4,600 launches. Even if we don't count the U.S. Air Force, Turkey and Israel alone still have more than 400 F-16s. They have outnumbered the number of Hwanying 2000s. So in terms of Hwanying 2000 as a younger brother, it seems that it has not been able to create its own dynasty. But this does not mean that Hwanying 2000 does not have its own advantages. It can't be used on the Russian-Ukrainian battlefield. According to French President Macron, Hwanying 2000-5 will be delivered to Ukraine early next year. Compared with Hwanying 2000-C, Hwanying 2000-5 has long-term upgrades in the electronic system, carrier sensor, and fighter cockpit. Not only does it improve combat effectiveness, but also reduces the workload of pilots. This is undoubtedly good news for the Ukrainian Air Force, because more efficient and simple operations can shorten the period of French training of U-pilots. After the war has advanced to a critical moment, the U.S. Air Force's combat effectiveness will be improved as soon as possible. Hwanying 2005 can do this because it has installed a new Thompson CSF Doppler radar. French code name is RDY. In 1994, when RDY radar was first tested, Thompson CSF Doppler radar is superior to F-16, ANAPG-66, and ANAPG-68, and F-18, ANAPG-65. If this is true, it is definitely good news for Ukraine, because Hwanying 2000's early models used RDI or RDM radars, mainly operated in air-to-air combat mode. RDY radar is specialized for anti-ship missiles and Kermel, 2 anti-ship missiles. This enhances the air-to-ground strike capability of the fighter. RDY radar can detect up to 24 targets at the same time and track 8 of them, then launch an attack on 4 targets. The maximum air-to-air detection range of more than 110,000 meters and the maritime detection distance of more than 35,000 meters can also increase the early warning range of Hwanying fighter. Of course, compared with the ANAPG-66 V2 version of the radar used by the F-16 AMBM fighter obtained by Ukraine, RDY still has some disadvantages in performance. The maximum detection distance of APG-66 V2 can reach 150,000 meters. If the radar is switched to the down-to-earth state, the detection distance of the fighter can also reach 100,000 meters, even in the face of low air-to-air targets, such as cruise missiles and drones. This radar also has a detection distance of about 50,000 meters. This is why Zelensky pointed out on the day he received the F-16 that it could help to intercept Russian cruise missiles in key areas, such as aircraft carriers. It can track 10 targets at the same time and attack 6 of them, even if there is serious electromagnetic interference and many electromagnetic waves in the battlefield. The F-16 can also achieve a detection distance of up to 83 kilometers with the help of this radar. And the early F-16AB type can only achieve an effective detection distance of about 60,000 meters in the face of the same interference environment. Therefore, in terms of anti-interference, the F-16 will still have an advantage over the F-2000. However, the F-2000 also has a certain technical advantage over the F-16 fighter. In some areas, the F-16 is mainly ahead of the F-2000 in terms of maximum flight speed and maximum combat height. This is inseparable from the large area triangular design used by the F-2000. In high-speed assault combat and interception operations against enemy aircraft, the F-2000 actually has a good performance. The high altitude and high-speed performance is better, and the maximum flight speed can reach 2.2 Mach. The actual altitude of the F-16 is also more than 17,000 meters. Compared with the F-16, it is more suitable for high-altitude interception and high-speed assault missions. It is excellent in terms of quickly arriving on the battlefield and occupying favorable positions. In addition, the F-2000 is excellent in close-range maneuverability and instantaneous maneuverability. In close-range air combat, the F-2000 can change its original head-to-head direction in a short loop. It can change its flight path in the shortest time and seize a better fighting position and launch air-to-air missiles ahead of the opponent to increase the winning rate of air combat. The F-2000 also has a relatively large number of weapons that can be loaded and can be loaded. There are 4 under-armor points and 5 under-armor points under the fuselage. The maximum support is 6.3 tons of ammunition. With the new RDY radar, as long as the corresponding weapon system is changed, the F-2000 can switch to its own combat mode. It can carry 6 MBDA-5 missiles or 2 AM.39 missiles and 1 Scalab 1, which is the so-called Storm Shadow missile. To carry out various combat missions such as air-to-air, ground-to-sea, and sea-to-air. In fact, Storm Shadow, which is compatible with the F-2000, has already made a lot of achievements on the Russian military battlefield. It has not only successfully attacked Russian weapons and equipment, but also hit many Russian important facilities and senior commanders. In terms of attacking enemy equipment, Storm Shadow attacked the Sevastopol shipyard controlled by the Russian military in September 2023, successfully hit the Russian Minsk landing ship that was being repaired in the shipyard at the time, and also hit a big hole in the Rostov submarine on the Donskoy River. In terms of attacking various buildings and medical facilities, Storm Shadow can also be fully competent. In September 2023, the Russian military launched Storm Shadow missiles again and attacked the headquarters of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Of course, the Russian military insisted that only the building was bombed and no one was hurt. According to the previous news from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, Storm Shadow once attacked the Russian 35th Group Army Command in the Zaporizhia region. This directly led to the death of several senior military officers, including the Chief of Staff Sergei Gryazkov. The deputy commander of the Russian Southern Military District, Oleg Yurovich Zorkov, was also attacked by Storm Shadow missiles in a military facility in Bielskoye. Of course, the Russian side has different versions of the planned passage of senior commanders. But at least we can see from these examples that after the military Air Force entered the Russian Air Force, it was able to provide Storm Shadow missiles with high-speed air-to-air weapons platforms. And France has also made it clear that there will be another batch of Scalab and Storm Shadow cruise missiles and AISM guided missiles with the Air Force at the beginning of next year. So now that we've got a fighter jet, we don't have to worry about getting into a situation where we don't have a chance to have. It can be said that the time of each Air Force working group is quite precious. For the current Ukrainian Air Force, the F-16 is still a better choice. This is not only because Ukraine is about to establish an Air Force Corps strategy based on the F-16, but also because the F-16, which was discontinued in 2007, did not get a more thorough upgrade, and there is indeed a certain degree of short-range combat effectiveness. Compared to the F-16, the F-2000 and other F-16 aircraft are still slightly behind in aviation engine technology. The F-2000 also faces a situation where the power is not fully sufficient. The M53 engine used in the F-2000 has a relatively low thrust ratio of only 6.5, while the F-100 series engines used in the F-16 AMBM and the F-110GE-129 engines used in the 2360 F-110 GE-129 engines have a thrust ratio of about 7.5. Therefore, the F-16's acceleration performance is stronger, and it can reach the required speed in a shorter period of time. Its climb rate is also higher, and it can climb to the ideal combat altitude faster, and the mobility of the aircraft will be stronger, and it will be easier to operate. We can also see the difference between the F-2000 and the F-16 aircraft from the climb rate data. The F-2000's climb rate is 285 meters per second, while the F-16's climb rate is 366 meters per second. The gap is quite obvious. Therefore, when fighting with the enemy aircraft for a long time, the F-2000's ability to achieve the same combat performance as the F-16 is quite a test for the pilot's ability. And as we just said, after the upgrade of the F-2000 radar system, in terms of detection distance, target tracking number, and multi-target attackability, the F-16 is still relatively behind. This will affect the F-16's perception of the battlefield and combat performance in modern air warfare. This also leads to the F-2000's ground-to-ground attackability is not as eye-catching as the F-16. But then again, it's not a problem to be behind the F-16, because after the F-2000 arrives at the house, it will face the Russian Air Force after all. At present, the most prominent Russian military aircraft on the Russian military battlefield are the Su-30, SM, Su-34, and Su-35. The F-2000 is still able to perform well against them. And according to the French news, before the F-2000 is officially handed over to Ukraine, the F-2000's electronic warfare system will be specially upgraded. The equipment to be installed is probably the ICMS Mk2 electronic defense system. The French modification is said to be adjusted based on the experience of the Russian military battlefield. In fact, in the end, in the eyes of the general public, the French-assisted F-2000, how useful can it be? In fact, there is a key problem. That is, France has not yet announced the specific number of F-2000s. Because when the two F-16s were handed over to the Ukrainian Air Force, there was a clear military comment. But so far, all F-16s listed in the U.S. nuclear weapons list have only been added to more than 80. After all, there are not many F-16s left in the stockpile of other European countries, and these more than 80 F-16s are also delivered in batches. Although the aid speed of Denmark and the Netherlands is already very fast, by the end of 2024, the F-16s in Ukraine will not exceed 30. Although Ukraine can already rely on the existing base size to be responsible for domestic air defense missions in key areas. But on the long battlefield, the number of existing F-16s is not enough to help Ukraine take the lead of the Russian army and help Ukraine take the control of the eastern Ukraine region. On the other hand, the batch of F-16s from France will be delivered at the beginning of next year. If the number is sufficient, Ukraine can increase its combat power in a short time. This is definitely a good news for Ukraine. At present, the French Air Force has delivered 28 F-16s. If it can deliver 28 to the Russian army by March or May next year, it will also bring a lot of improvement to the Russian Air Force. All in all, the French aid to Ukraine will still bring a lot of change to the Russian-Ukrainian war situation. The pressure on the Russian Air Force will also continue to increase. As for how the F-16s should cooperate with the F-16s, you are welcome to comment.